It was just past 7, on a gray Tuesday morning when Daniel pushed open the door of the small-town diner. His daughter Lily's hand nestled tightly in his. The bell above the door jingled, a sound he had grown accustomed to over the last few months. It was part of his new routine early mornings at Millie's place, a modest little diner tucked away from the busier part of town, where the coffee was always hot and the world moved just slow enough for him to keep up. He needed that. Life had moved far too fast lately. Too fast to process. Too fast to breathe. Daniel had discovered the diner by accident one morning, just weeks after losing his wife, Claire. She had been the heart of their home, the one who hummed while cooking, who sang Lily to sleep, who made everything feel lighter even when life was heavy. And now she was gone, just gone. A car accident, a late-night call, and a world turned upside down. There had been no warning, no final words, no time to say goodbye. Now it was just Daniel and Lily, and Millie's place. He came for the quiet, for the stillness, for the way the windows fogged slightly when it was cold outside, and for the simple fact that Lily liked the pancakes there. They always sat in the same booth near the corner, where Lily could press her small fingers to the glass and draw foggy hearts. And Daniel could pretend, for a few moments, that life was okay. It was there that he first noticed the waitress. She was always there, every single morning, tall and pale with tired eyes and a name tag that read Emily. Her dark brown hair was usually tied up in a loose bun, a pencil tucked behind one ear, and she moved with a kind of practiced grace, as if she had worked there forever. But what Daniel noticed most wasn't her movements or her voice, it was her silence. She never smiled, she wasn't rude. In fact, she was polite to a fault. She always refilled his coffee just before he asked. She remembered Lily's name by the second visit and brought extra whipped cream on her pancakes without needing a reminder. But her expression never changed. Calm, measured, neutral. Not cold, but distant, as though her mind lived miles away from the place her feet stood. At first, Daniel didn't think much of it. Everyone had their stories. Maybe she was just tired. Maybe she had a rough shift the night before. But as the days turned into weeks, and their morning routine became more of a ritual, he couldn't help but wonder. What was it that weighed on her so heavily that not even Lily's joyful chatter could stir a smile? Lily noticed it too. "Daddy," she whispered one morning after Emily walked away, "why doesn't the lady ever smile?" Daniel had glanced over at the waitress, who was now quietly wiping down a counter across the room, her face void of any expression. "I don't know, sweetheart," he replied gently, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. "Maybe she's just having a hard day." "But she's having a hard day every day," Lily said, her tone filled with that innocent curiosity only children possess. "That's sad." It was Daniel knew that kind of sadness. He lived it. He walked through it every day in the shape of empty rooms and a bed too big for one. He wore it like a second skin, invisible to most but all-consuming inside. Still, he smiled, not because he was okay, but because Lily needed to see him smile. She needed some part of her world to remain bright. Maybe that's why Emily stood out to him. She reminded him of himself. In those early days, right after Claire's death, when the pain was so sharp and present that smiling felt like betrayal. When just getting out of bed took more strength than he had. When everything beautiful seemed like a personal insult. But he had Lily. Lily made him get up. Lily made him breathe. She was his reason. He often wondered what Emily's reason was, if she even had one left. On their 23rd visit, yes, he counted Emily accidentally spilled a bit of coffee while refilling his cup, just a few drops on the edge of the table. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for a napkin. "I'm so sorry," she muttered, avoiding his eyes. "It's okay," Daniel said, offering her a gentle smile. "It happens." She nodded quickly, brushing away the spill and retreating to the counter without another word. That's when Daniel noticed the faint scar on her left wrist. It was barely visible, and he wouldn't have seen it had the sleeve of her uniform not slipped up slightly. His heart clenched instinctively. He didn't know her story, but suddenly, he wanted to. There was a kind of pain in her eyes that he couldn't ignore anymore. The kind of pain that doesn't just pass with time. The kind that doesn't get better until someone sees it, acknowledges it. But how do you ask a stranger why they never smile? He didn't even know her last name. All he knew was that she carried a sorrow so thick it hung in the air around her, and no one seemed to notice. No one but Lily, and him. That night, as he tucked Lily into bed, she looked up at him with her usual earnestness. "Do you think maybe the lady just needs a friend?" she asked. Daniel paused for a moment, smoothing the blanket around her. "Maybe," he said quietly, "maybe we can be her friends." Children have a way of seeing things that adults miss. Simplicity wrapped in truth. Lily didn't care about Emily's silence or the invisible wall she kept around herself. She just saw someone who needed kindness. Daniel lay awake that night thinking about it. About how many times someone had reached out to him when he was drowning in grief. The casserole dishes, the awkward but well-meaning cards, the friends who showed up uninvited just to sit in the silence with him. And then he thought about the times no one showed up. When the house was too quiet. When he cried in the shower, because it was the only place Lily wouldn't see. What if Emily was in that place now? Alone in the dark, with no one to hold space for her pain. The next morning, Daniel brought her a coffee, not the kind she served to customers, but one from the cafe across the street. It had her name scribbled on the side in clumsy black marker. With a small smiley face Lily had drawn herself, when he handed it to her, she blinked in confusion. What's this? Just a coffee, Daniel said casually. Lily wanted to draw you something. Emily looked down at the cup, at the crooked little smiley face. For a second, her lips twitched, not quite a smile, but close. Her fingers tightened slightly around the cup. Thank you, she said, her voice softer than usual. He nodded, then turned back to his booth, where Lily was grinning proudly. That moment lingered in his mind all day, not because she smiled, she hadn't, but because for the first time, something shifted. A tiny crack in the wall she had built, a flicker of warmth in eyes that had only known frost. He didn't need to know everything at once. He didn't need her story yet. But maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of it. A small act of kindness. A connection. In the end, it was never really about the coffee, or the pancakes, or even the smile that never came. It was about two people, broken in different ways, sitting in the same quiet place every morning, unknowingly reaching for the same thing: healing, understanding, a reason to keep going.